Hey guys, welcome back to Doozy Talks with Susie. And today I'm going to be reacting to a video that can I call it one of my heroes? This is somebody who got me started on this journey towards figuring out how to biohack my own health, figure out my gene mutations and what I can do to support them. So I want to talk about this is one of the videos that really got me moving towards figuring out, oh, I have a lot of these symptoms. You know, he said it a lot in a lot of his other videos with his interviews. Maybe I should give it a try, check it out. And so I did. I finally went and got gene tested. And this video was very informative for me. And I think I know a lot of people who have similar symptoms. And one of the things that's always been difficult for me is the anxiety and other types of um, mental problems and sleeping. And so this is Gary Brecka on the Ultimate Human podcast, and he's talking about the MTHFR gene. It's a gene mutation. It's actually more common than people probably realize, and very seldom do we properly supplement for it. So let's go ahead.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Ultimate Human podcast. Today is a podcast short on one of my most...
Now, I do have it running a little bit fast. It's a long video, so it is running a little bit faster. Maybe on your own screen, you could slow it down a little bit. If I need to slow it down, I might. Gary does talk really fast. So it's amazing how fast he can talk because he talks faster than I can. And I have to repeat everything all of his videos that I listen to, I have to rewind it, like listen to the same video 3 times because he drops so much amazing information. So feel free to go back and watch it multiple times. Go to his channel, check out his stuff.
Most passionate topics, and that is supplementing for deficiency and not just the sake of supplementation. Please, if you are considering becoming pregnant, if you're a young woman and you are considering having a child, if you have a child that has ADD or ADHD, or you're somebody that's affected by ADD or ADHD or OCD, or you or a family member is suffering from hypertension, I have a clinical study that is a must share. I hope that you forward this podcast
now, this is
to every one of your
this is amazing because I do know a lot of people with those symptoms, and I have it in my family as well.
With methylated nutrients, and to be specific, these are the forms of nutrients that are already broken down for your body, and whether or not this supplementation can have a massive impact on your health, directly impacting things like attention deficit disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, infertility, repeated miscarriages or multiple miscarriages, or trouble getting pregnant, and something called postpartum depression, which, yes, can begin during pregnancy. And so many women are affected by this. So many men are actually affected by this gene mutation that causes behavioral changes, that causes mental changes, that causes severe gut disruption. Remember, the pace of our gut, the pace at which our gut is moving is just as important as...
And like, okay, so every single symptom that he's mentioned, aside from miscarriages and fertility problems, because I haven't tried to get pregnant. So, but all the other symptoms that he's mentioned, the gut issues, the ADHD, the OCD symptoms, the anxiety, all of the hypertension, even, those either run in my family or I deal with the symptoms. And infertility or trouble with pregnancies, postpartum depression, all of those do run in my family. So I'm like, I need to hear what this guy has to say.
As the contents. So if you're one of those people, or you know somebody who's been suffering from gut issues and they've been down the road of testing their gut biome, they've been down the road of food allergy testing, they've been down the road of food sensitivity testing, and nothing seems to work, they're still suffering from gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, irritability, cramping, all of these myriad of symptoms that are under the definition of irritable bowel syndrome, please listen to this podcast. And those young women that have an OBGYN, please forward this to your OBGYN, because this could make a material difference in the health of your pregnancy and the health of your baby once it's born. So I have often argued that we should stop.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there for a second. He mentioned talking to your OBGYN about it. And I think this is so important. If you have gotten gene tested or you're wanting to because you notice some of these symptoms in yourself, I just really appreciate somebody talking about these problems that us women deal with our estrogen and progesterone, because it's like a hormone. And you're over here trying to figure out what's going on with your hormones because your body feels different, something's going on, you don't know. And then you go see your OBGYN and they put you on birth control. And this happened for me. This happened for me. So I can speak from experience. I was put on birth control and it did help like mask the problems that I was dealing with, but it didn't actually fix my problem of the hormone imbalance. It just kind of masked it so that I was having my regular cycle like I should. And since I started taking Gary Brecka's advice, everything's leveled out like beautifully well for my hormones. And I'm like, it's amazing. So, yes, speak to your OBGYN because it could just be, yes, it could be a hormone problem, but if you're just taking medicine, maybe that's only masking it like it did for me. So, and then it doesn't actually fix the problem. And then a few years later, you wonder why you're having other problems when the original problem was never fixed to begin with.
Stop supplementing for the sake of supplementing, and we should start supplementing for deficiency. And by supplementing for deficiency, what I mean is that very often we are nutrient deficient. We're not as diseased or as pathological as we think we are. We are missing vital nutrients that is causing the body to behave abnormally and leading to the expression of disease. In other words, if you have attention deficit disorder, you're not deficient in Adderall. You're not deficient in Ritalin. You're not missing a chemical or a synthetic or a pharmaceutical. You may very well be nutrient deficient. The most important process that human beings go through 300 billion times a day is a process called methylation. Methylation is the process where we take the majority of all nutrients that enter our bodies, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, nutrients of any kind, and we convert them into the usable form. I always use the analogy that we pull crude oil out of the ground. But you cannot put crude oil into your gas tank because the car doesn't understand that fuel source. You see, crude oil has to be converted. It has to be refined into gasoline for the car to use that fuel source. Human beings are no different. Put all kinds of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, fats of all kinds into the body. And then we assume that the body can take those and turn them into the usable form. And if it can't, then what happens is it leads to a deficiency. It is this deficiency that very often leads to the expression of some of the most common ailments that we are suffering from in mankind. You know, my message.
Okay, this was the best way I'd ever heard anybody explain the methylation process, because I thought, and I've read so many books on the importance of, and I've listened to podcasts as well, on the importance of eating a whole plant-based diet and whole foods, none of the like refined stuff, highly processed, plant-based, like that stuff isn't real food. And I've read all these books, how the nutrients in them, they're so good. And I attempted to go down that path. I have 10 of the 12 methylation genes, gene mutations. And so for me personally, it wasn't working and I couldn't figure out how. And I'm like, I started, at first, my body was okay. And then slowly, like, I started noticing more and more symptoms. And I'm going, what is wrong with my body? I'm eating, I would even try switching all the way over to organic foods. So, hoping that something along the way would fix what I was dealing with. And nothing was working. I was protein deficient because I was trying to do only plants, and I was eating way more carbs than I was accustomed, like my body naturally can handle. And I'm going, how am I supposed to get on all the vitamins? What's going on? And the vitamins, like, they didn't seem to be working for me the way I needed. And when he explained that when you take a certain supplement, such as methylated supplements, your body can already use them. But when you're eating something like a vegetable or a grain or beans, legumes, any of those, what happens is your body has to take that, transfer it into the usable form, and then use it in your body. When it's methylated, it's already, that makes it more bioavailable and your body can use it right away. And that was mind blowing for me because it changed everything so that I was looking more into supplements and how I could better my health.
Message is a message of hope. It's a message that if we put the right raw materials back into the human body, we can see and thrive in ways we never thought possible. Most of you watching this podcast are walking around, in my estimation, at about 55 or 60% of your true state of normal. And what I mean by your true state of normal is you might not have any idea how good you would feel if you just put the right raw materials, if you knew what was missing from your body and you put the right raw materials back in your body. We have
So
seen this
true.
over and over and over again with vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, omega-3 fatty acids. The human food supply, our soil has become so depleted over the last few years, and our food supply so infested with chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, insecticides that are disrupting our cellular biology that finally the time has come for us to supplement in ways that can reduce the expression of many of these conditions. And I've long since held that we are not as diseased or pathological as we think we are. We are nutrient deficient. So let's begin.
Agree.
Today's discussion is about one of my most passionate topics, and that is the most common gene mutation in the world. It's called the MTHFR gene. I know if you look at MTHFR, what you're thinking, no, it does not mean the gene. It means methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. Now, that doesn't sound like it's important to you, but it's very important. 44 to 60% of the population is estimated to have some form of this gene variant. And what this gene does is it takes folate, which is the natural form of folic acid, and synthetic folic acid, which is a laboratory-made chemical. Understand that you cannot find folic acid anywhere on the surface of the earth. It does not occur naturally in nature, but it takes these two forms of vitamin B9 and it converts them into the active form. So remember that folate that you get from green leafy vegetables in a healthy diet, and folic acid, which you can get from supplementation, which is the first line of defense in the United States against neural tube defects in pregnant women. Both of these compounds enter the cell, but before they are used, they are the crude oil entering the cell. Before they are used, they have to be converted into the gasoline so the body can recognize it. So folic acid and folate, natural form and synthetic form, both go through the same process of being broke down and converted into the gasoline version, the usable version called 5-methylfolate. And this is where our journey is going to begin today, because whether or not you are supplementing with the reduced form or with the non-active form of folic acid or even dietary folate makes a major difference in your cellular biology. And these supplements are dirt cheap, they are very inexpensive, and they very well could change the trajectory of your life if you are suffering from any of the ailments that I named in the beginning of this podcast. So there is a research study, a clinical study. I almost shed a tear when I saw this because it's proved everything that we have seen in clinical practice over the last 10 years. Our clinic director is a board-certified OBGYN, Dr. Sarda. She has delivered 9,000 babies. She's a regenerative medicine doctor. She has 2 master's degrees. She's constantly educating herself. And she and I have stood at the top of the mountain and beaten our chest about the need to get folic acid out of the diets of people with MTHFR, this very common gene mutation, and supplement with the necessary micronutrient called methylfolate. So this clinical study, which was completed in 2020 and published in 2024 in the Journal of Clinical Medicine, a very renowned journal, really highlights what happens at a cellular level when our body is deficient in something called methylfolate, specifically 5-methylfolate. So let's begin this journey. This study starts by talking about adequate levels of folates are essential for homeostasis in the organism, meaning in human beings, for the prevention of congenital malformations, including neural tube defects, and the salvage of predisposed disease states. What does it mean to salvage a predisposed disease state? It means that if you have a predisposition because of a genetic mutation or a genetic anomaly, the presence of the expression of a gene, that these predispositions do not have to be your destiny. The BRCA gene does not always mean that a woman is going to get breast cancer. The presence of MTHFR does not mean that you're destined to have ADD or ADHD or OCD or manic depression or bipolar, or that you're going to end up with cardiovascular disease, or that you're going to end up with a higher incidence of cancer, all of which are linked to this gene mutation. The question is, why? Because this
Okay, so what he just said about the folic acid and the folate, and he'll probably go into more detail in a minute on this. But I have a friend, and she had been struggling to get pregnant. She couldn't figure out what was going on. And her dad, who's a doctor, said, "Hey, try this." He probably watches Gary Brecka, to be honest. But he told her like a year and a half ago, "Hey, let's get gene tested, see what's going on." She found out she has the MTHFR gene along with 4 other ones. And so what we're always told, and I'm pretty sure my mom did this as well when she was pregnant, because she took a lot of supplements during pregnancy and after pregnancy. Like she was always taking supplements. And the thing though is with the folic acid, our bodies cannot efficiently break it down. Um, and turn it into the 5-MTHF. I'm not going to say the whole thing. Tetramethylhydrofolate. Oh, I said it. So, anyways, our body can't turn that into the usable form. And so we need the actual 5-MTHF supplement. And then what's crazy is right before I switched from mostly vegan, plant based, whole food living, I had been using also some foods that were, what's the word, fortified, because you'll find like cereals, nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is what I was using. But a lot of foods will get fortified with folic acid. And so you'll see on the label B9 or folic acid. And you'll think, oh, cool, it's a vitamin. It's good for me. It's going to help me feel good. But if you have this gene, you probably have some problems. It's probably not going to properly work in your body. And that's what he's trying to say here. And it can cause struggles during pregnancy, complications for the baby, for the mom. And to me, I'm like, that is so valuable to know for the time when I do decide that I'm ready to get married, have kids, knowing like this big hype about folic acid. Maybe I shouldn't be getting involved with it because it's it's shown to not be able to be used, and it can cause complications. So, oh, and all that to say, the friend of mine, she just gave birth to her baby, a healthy baby. So that's also awesome. So after she got gene tested and they found all this stuff, and then she started supplementing correctly, her and her husband, they just had a baby. It's so cool. All right. Anyways, let's continue.
This gene provides for one of the most important active nutrients in the human body. And so this study goes on to examine how the cellular biology depends on a genetic predisposition, which is meaning whether you have MTHFR or you don't. And therefore, a pharmacogenetic approach to individualized supplementation or therapeutic intervention is necessary for optimal outcome. Pharmacogenetic means that we can actually intervene not with pharmaceuticals, but with supplements to offset the expression of this gene. This is really exciting stuff. So depriving cells of folate leads to reversible S-phase arrest. Now, what's S-phase arrest? First of all, I want you to think of DNA as a ladder. You climb up and down this ladder. You take this ladder, you twist it, and you shove it into the nucleus of every single cell in the human body. We have an estimated 32 trillion cells in our body, and inside of the nucleus of every one of those cells is a twisted ladder of DNA. And what this twisted ladder does is a few things. It actually writes messages into the cell to make certain proteins. That's called transcription. Those messages are called mRNA. If you heard of the mRNA vaccine, it is a synthetic copy of a message from your DNA to make a certain protein, a messenger RNA. It also unzips right down the center and creates an exact copy of itself. Okay, so that is called replication. This is why one cell in your body can divide and become two identical cells. So when this ladder unzips, just like the zipper on your jacket, as it unzips, it's very important that these teeth line up when you zip it up again. So imagine this ladder starting to stitch itself back together. All of these amino acid sequences in this ladder starting to come back together. Well, what if you are deficient in a certain raw material, specifically methylfolate, 5-methylfolate? And what happens is these two rungs do not line up. When they don't line up, the cell enters something called S-phase arrest. Now, this is a protective mechanism so that genetic mutations don't promulgate, so that cancers and viruses are silenced, so that if an impaired DNA has a sequence that is missing, it doesn't just continue to divide. This is a very good thing in our cellular biology. It's the checks and balance system that God designed to make sure that a limited number of mutations will ever be expressed. And if you have something really genetically deficient in your DNA, that it doesn't continue to express itself.
That's
However,
so cool.
when methylfolate, 5-methylfolate is missing, the cell goes into, or the DNA goes into something called S-phase arrest. Here's the interesting point. S-phase arrest is reversible. How is it reversed? In this case, it is reversed by supplementing with 5-methylfolate, not folic acid, 5-methylfolate. Depriving cells of folate leads to this reversible S-phase arrest. Since 5-methylfolate, the gene mutation in MTHFR, is the key enzyme in the biosynthesis of the active form, we evaluate the relevance of this MTHFR gene mutation against people that do not have the MTHFR gene mutation. Here is really, really an interesting point. Folic acid supplementation resulted in a 2.5-fold increase in 5-methylfolate, meaning if you supplemented with folic acid, there was a 2.5-fold increase intracellularly in 5-methylfolate, the active form. So it was the cell was able to take the crude oil, folic acid, convert it into the gasoline, 5-methylfolate, 2.5-fold increase in intracellular concentration if you did not have the gene mutation MTHFR. 44% of the population has this gene mutation. 44% of women have this gene mutation, which means 44% of young women that are looking to get pregnant, 44% of children that have attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity disorders, that have obsessive compulsive disorders, that have learning disabilities, that have deficits in attention and inability to pay attention, 44% of children that have autism. And the question is, what happens when folic acid is supplemented in?
To me, this is so powerful because it answers questions, and it's like, how literally adding this in to my supplements has helped reducing the anxiety that I deal with, and it's really amazing.
In somebody without the gene mutation? Well, you have a 2.5-fold increase in this necessary metabolite. However, when these cells were exposed to 5-methylfolate, let me back up for a second. So in the MTHFR gene population that does not have this genetic mutation, there was a 2.5-fold increase. In the population that had MTHFR, when they supplemented with folic acid, there was a 0-fold increase in 5-methylfolate. I cannot emphasize that enough. Whether you're eating dietary folate and eating a good, clean, healthy diet, and I would maintain that it's really hard to do that based on the depletion in our soil, or you are supplementing with folic acid, if you have the MTHFR gene mutation, there was a 0-fold increase in the active metabolite. 0. When they took the cells that had the MTHFR gene mutation.
So literally, if you're over here taking, like, you're eating foods that are supplement or fortified with either folate or folic acid, but you have this gene, your body literally cannot use it. And then you end up with more problems that, like the anxiety, a lot of behavior, like the cognitive health. And let me know if you have any questions on this part here, because I can make another video to help explain it further.
And they supplemented with 5-methylfolate, there was a 10-fold increase in the intracellular levels of the necessary metabolite. That cannot be overlooked. This ends the discussion on whether or not pregnant women should supplement with folic acid or 5-methylfolate. And I will maintain that you should supplement with a methylated multivitamin. These are the same price as regular off-the-shelf multivitamins, but make an enormous difference in your cellular biology. I'm so passionate about this project. I'm like talking to myself. I'm writing a book about genetic mutations and simple supplementation and how it can just change the trajectory of your life. I wrote 15 additional pages just because of this study. And
I can't wait for that book to come out. It's going to be so good. I'll probably read it like 20 times.
That are influencing folate levels in individuals, including dietary intake. Most individuals are not getting the right amount of folate from their diet, but even if you are a healthy eater and you're getting the right amount of folate, if you have a genetic predisposition, this can significantly impair, if not completely impair, your ability to process folate. And if you're using certain medications, we know that methotrexate, other corticosteroids actually block the metabolism of folic acid. So here's the interesting thing. If you have rheumatoid arthritis, they put you on methotrexate. They know that methotrexate blocks the conversion of folic acid into 5-methylfolate. So what do they give you? More folic acid, which is not going to convert into the active form 5-methylfolate. So if you are one of those people that is taking a corticosteroid, if you have rheumatoid arthritis and you're on a methotrexate or other kind of corticosteroid, or you're regularly taking prednisone or methylprednisone or any of these other corticosteroids or anti-inflammatories, you should seriously consider talking to your doctor about supplementing with 5-methylfolate.
That is so good to know.
Here is the most interesting thing, and I get really wound around the axle on this. So this diagram here is describing, it's showing you a visual difference between dietary folate intake. So you see all those vegetables up there at the top of that diagram? This is a person eating a healthy diet. Now, let's just assume for a second you don't have the gene mutation MTHFR. Let's make that assumption for one moment. If you do not have the gene mutation, the folate in your diet passes through the cell membrane, enters the folate cycle. It goes through 10 conversion steps. You'll see at the very bottom of this diagram, it ends in the conversion of the active metabolite 5-methylfolate. That's the mother lode. That's the gasoline. That is the driver of our cellular biology. It is one of the most necessary methylated nutrients in the human body. It is absolutely essential to good cellular health and to the function of our cells. It is very early in the methylation cycle, which means that this nutrient is actually used to then feed other genetic enzymes and reduce levels of homocysteine, which is directly linked in many cases to hypertension. Maybe one of the reasons why 85% of all hypertensive diagnoses in America are idiopathic, of unknown origin.
Okay, so this is not the first time I've actually heard him talk about the homocysteines, and I talk to people about homocysteines all the time because of because I have multiple gene mutations. I have to watch my homocysteine levels, get my blood tested, all of that, keep an eye on it, and it's so exciting when I understood high homocysteine levels are what Like that's like the basic starting point to hypertension. And I'm like, dude, my mom has had hypertension like since I can remember. Um, she went to the hospital when I was 8.5, got diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And she even couldn't figure out what was going on. She would supplement with MSM um, to kind of help, and then some other supplements to help with her heart. But along with taking her medication that the doctor prescribes. But she couldn't figure out why every time she goes to get her heart checked, her heart checks out fine. But then she's still getting congestive heart failure. And then it would get to where she would have a major episode like once a year. And like like clockwork. It was crazy. Like I could tell like to the month, to the week. I was like, okay, she's probably going to have another bout of this congestive heart failure again. And to me, I'm like, what is causing this? What's going on? And how is she having a healthy what she's telling me? Like I never actually saw the the exams and stuff until after she had a stroke a few years ago. But looking at those, her heart still seemed okay. Um and but understanding now, oh, okay, I've got this gene. I got it from one parent or the other. And then my dad's over here with his blood pressure's always been healthy up until recently. But my mom's blood pressure has always been off. And I'm going, okay, I'm at risk of, I can't say because I haven't gotten either of my parents' gene tested yet. But I'm like, kind of guessing who I might have gotten that gene mutation from because one of them has this problem with high blood pressure. My dad has heart problems, but his are more because of atherosclerosis that's been developing through the years. So his is something else, which I can kind of like pinpoint. The more I'm studying the gene mutations, I can start seeing, okay, yeah, this is my probably got from my dad. And then over here, oh, this one, it's like my mom had all of this stuff from complications. And then I go, wait, uh, if I just take care of my body now, exercising regularly, eating the right foods that aren't going to cause inflammation and stress on my body, then I have a good chance of avoiding all of that. And I got to get sun exposure because I have a vitamin D receptor mutation. Actually, I have both of them. And I got it from both of my parents. So my body really struggles with vitamin D using it. Um, so, yeah. Anyways, stuff he's saying in here is so good, people. It is so good. Um, yeah, let's keep going.
Well, the origin is known. We're just not addressing it. So when you look at the incidence of hypertension, the increased incidence of hypertension in people that have this MTHFR gene mutation, you might wonder, well, what is the link between MTHFR and hypertension? Well, the link is the deficiency in this micronutrient that then enters something called the homocysteine cycle and helps lower homocysteine. Well, if you can't lower homocysteine, it rises. When it rises, very often it causes a vascular constriction, which drives up blood pressure. I'll put a link to that study as well. If you have an impaired homocysteine cycle, then you have a deficiency very often in something called L-methionine. L-methionine then goes up and enters another cycle in the brain, which helps to break down catecholamines, which are fight or flight neurotransmitters. These people that are suffering from bouts of anxiety that is unexplained by their environment, where they look into their outside environment and they go, I don't know why I'm feeling the presence of a fear without the presence of a fear. I don't know why I lay down to go to sleep at night and my mind is always awake.
This
and
is
I'm body
me
tired,
every
but my mind
night.
awake. I don't know why I'm so anxious all the
Up
time.
until
I don't know
recently.
why sometimes when I lose my temper, I can't get the train back into the station. The cork pops and I cannot put it back in the bottle. This gives an explanation between the mental conditions related to nutrient deficiencies. If you can't break down catecholamines rise. Catecholamines are fight or flight neurotransmitters. They give you the sensation of fear. They give you the sensation of anxiety. They give you the sensation of anxiousness. So what if we could normalize a lot of these quote unquote mood disorders with micronutrients? This is what's so exciting to me because I want the humanity to understand we are not as diseased and pathological as we think. We'd be nutrient deficient. That is a really
Okay, I might stop there. It's a long video, as you can see, but this is something that's so amazing because I know people personally who deal with severe anxiety, and there is the point like I know you have to work with making sure that you're not just believing every thought that comes into your head. We have that aspect. And like you start letting yourself spiral out of control. Hold on, let's say goodbye to there we go. Like, so you can't let your thoughts just spiral out of control. Try to keep them on track. Pay attention to what's going on in your head. But I know of people who are like, I feel anxiety. I'm not stressed about anything. I'm not thinking anything. I'm just experiencing the symptoms of anxiety and I don't know why. Or I'm laying in bed at night and I can't like slow my brain down and I go, okay, I deal with the same stuff. What is going on? And literally getting gene tested was the best move ever because now I understand what my body is doing. And I honestly cannot thank Gary Brecka enough. He's one of the people who got me started. There's several other people, and I'll say about reacting to their videos. Hopefully, YouTube doesn't take it all down. Because I think what these people have said is truly life changing. And it gets us beyond just taking medication or just supplementing for the sake of supplementing because so and so said to take a supplement. It's like you can look at the thing is when you get your genes tested, that's hard data. Like your genes don't just your genes don't change. So if you have a mutation, you have a mutation. And you can do what you can to supplement so that your body can function at optimal levels. And I started supplementing about 3 months ago, changing up my diet, eating healthier, eating cleaner, reading more books, trying to figure out what is going on, reading research papers so that I have a full understanding of what's going on in my body and what I can do to help myself. And I have never felt so well in my life. I sleep at night now. I wake up rested in the morning. And it's been truly amazing. Anyways, that's all I have for today's video. Please drop in the comments if you have questions because there are a lot of things he just unpacked on this video. And I can either react to another video that breaks down whatever your questions are, or I can make my own separate video explaining if I already have all the knowledge. In this channel, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure things out. So we can learn and grow together because this is something it's fairly new, understanding the genes and looking at the genes and what our body needs individually. I think it makes it so much more clear to understand what works for one person doesn't work for the next person. So the diet I'm consuming may not work for another person. I know people who thrive on a whole plant-based diet. They thrive on it. And my body just doesn't. It struggles. It's because of the gene mutations that I deal with. My body can't break down certain carbohydrates and it does, but it's very difficult. And so I've had to switch over from how I'm eating and do what's working better for my body. It's kind of like exercise. One type of exercise works for one person, another type of exercise works for another person. And the end goal is to be the healthiest we can be. So let me know what you think. If you haven't already, we're making it to the end of the video. Subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you're notified when I make another video. And I'll see you guys in the next one.